Welcome to Morningstar. Today I talked to Jeana Doubell, Morningstar research analyst here in Amsterdam, about the actual developments in the bond market. Now, during the first quarter of 2024, the Middle East have been plagued by geopolitical conflicts, shipping disruptions in the Red Sea, cuts in oil production, and all those factors have added to existing vulnerabilities related to high debt levels and elevated borrowing costs. Now, how are emerging market debt managers viewing all those recent events, Jeana?
Well, most managers don't think that a significant escalation in tensions is likely. In fact, some managers, such as JP Morgan, have cited or explained that several core players in that region have actually worked quite hard in recent years on strengthening ties with other countries. Evidence of this was seen by Jordan, who contributed to neutralizing the retaliation missile attack from Iran on Israel earlier in April.
And what about the broader impact on global markets? What can you tell us about that?
So far, most factors have been relatively contained. The first one that jumps to mind probably for most of investors is Iran's contribution to global oil production. Now it's important to note that Iran only contributes about 3 million barrels a day to global oil production, and that's roughly equivalent or just under Saudi Arabia's spare capacity. So most investors are not seeing a significant uptick in volatility or in oil prices as increasingly likely. There might be slight jumps, but these have been relatively contained thus far. On the other hand, TCW's emerging market debt team, for example, have noted that most geopolitical events have only a short-lived impact on global emerging markets when it deviates significantly from the core macro themes that are already in play. If we think back to Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, where we saw US Treasury bills, the 10-year bills, jump 30 basis points in the first 2 weeks after the invasion, we then saw them resume the original decline that they had been on preceding the invasion at the end of those 2 weeks, linked to global increases in inflation and in anticipation of the Fed's rate hiking cycles. So essentially, we basically see a reversion to the core macro themes that occur after short-term fluctuations from geopolitical events.
And if we now look at concrete actions from fund managers, are you seeing managers significantly shifting their regional portfolio positioning?
Not significantly, no, especially regarding the Middle East. If I consider 91's emerging market corporate debt fund, which had roughly about 7.5% allocation to the Middle East at the end of 2023, which is roughly half of their benchmark's weight, so a considerable underweighting, that underweight remained constant through the first quarter of 2024 and well into April. These managers specifically use that underweight to the Middle East in part to overweight other regions where they see better relative value opportunities. The 91 team, for example, see specific opportunities in Latin America. And yes, some of those are oil names that they've seen in the region, but they are also overweight, for example, consumer sectors, but even Brazilian food producers.
Okay, and what can you tell us more about other opportunities that there are in the oil sector?
Well, if I consider PIMCO's emerging market debt team, which are underweight the Middle East's oil producers, they are still wanting to take advantage of potential surges in oil prices from recent events or as the global economies continue to recover post the COVID crises. So therefore, we're seeing them add exposure to oil producers in other regions such as Angola and Senegal.
And as we see managers underweighting the Middle East in order to fund ideas in other regions on the back of the geopolitical concerns that we just have been talking about, are there any specific countries of interest that are standing out by your opinion?
Certainly. We've heard several managers in favor of Egypt in recent quarters. For example, BlackRock's emerging market bond fund, which only holds half of its benchmarks weight to the Middle East. So again, a considerable underweight to the Middle East. Within that underweight, they still managed to be overweight in Egypt, carrying about 3.2% versus the benchmark's 1.9%. And the reasons that they cite and what that we've heard from several managers has been the solid reform action in Egypt over the last 2 quarters, and more recently, the IMF's positive review.
Okay, Jeana, thank you very much for your insights in bond market developments, especially in the Middle East. Thank you all for watching. For Morningstar, I am Robert van den Oever.